Hey everybody! Sorry for the late start, had some stuff going on, and I have a new setup, and I made the mistake of thinking I got a new desk, a standing desk, and I thought, I can put this together. I have hours before the stream starts, and then I got into it, and it was a lot more involved than I thought it would be, as these things often go. So it took me a bit, and then I had to reconfigure my whole computer and setup, but plus side, I can stand now and dance while I animate and give notes, so that's exciting. But yeah, it took a while. I always think that like moving my computer around and all that is going to be easy, and then I do it and it's not. Every single time, just having to plug everything back in. And I always think too that, oh, wire management, I'm going to make sure everything looks pretty and is neat and organized, and then I actually try to do it and cry a little bit. So that's what I've been dealing with for my majority of my day. And yeah, so it's a standing desk. This is autonomous. So it's actually the same brand as my chair over here that I got. It's their standing desk, like standard, I think. I love it so far. It's awesome. I can like preset it and go up or down, and it goes extremely high. Like, I was worried because I'm a tall girl, so I was like, I hope it will be, tall enough that you can do like the 90 degree of like your arms sitting on the desk. But totally fits me and goes way above what I need to, so I can actually set it to a little bit lower. But yeah, so standing desks are very nice. I highly recommend so far, as I will share more when I actually use it. So we are getting live footage of Madison using it. And I also have my tablet on an ergotron arm now, so I can actually like bring it forward and actually give good notes because my tablet isn't falling all over the place. So you know what? It's just little upgrades that make life better. But let me hold on, make sure. Also, let me know if like anything's going weird with like my setup, because again, I just set everything up. So hopefully my mic's okay, and I turned my gate down a little bit, so hopefully that's better. But yeah, okay, so hopefully just let me know if anything's going crazy. So let me go ahead and get into shots, things that we're doing today. So I think we just have AJ. Let me look. 1 second. Okay, cool. So I should have everything. Hopefully my mic is better now. But we have AJ and Eub. So first we're going to start off with AJ. And yeah, cable management. What's that even? But okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start off with AJ. Let's see, latest blocking plus for this week. Focus more in the beginning and mid. Pushing expressions. Cool. Not sure about the last acting choice of her looking back. Just wanted to try it. Awesome. Cool. Let me take a look then. Hopefully this is the most recent one. Yes. Okay, let's watch.
I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
Nice.
I'm sorry. And if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
Nice, this is looking really good. I really like how you're pushing things. Like, she's feeling a lot more alive and pushed in the right way too. She doesn't feel like she's too cartoony. You hit a really nice like mix between styles. I was wondering what way you were going to go with it, like when I first saw your reference and then the really cool animatic that you did. I was like, oh, are you going to go super cartoony? But I like this kind of like middle of the road. Like, there's naturalistic, but there's also, you're pushing it at the right times, which I really enjoy. As far as it goes for this end, which I'm guessing you're talking about this look back where she like, it does a little bit of like The Office and like does the camera look. I like it. I think it could work, but again, like I really do like the reference here of where she's just like lost in her thoughts, right? That was kind of one of my favorite parts about the end, is like you're disconnecting her from the audience. And by doing that, by like not looking at the audience and, just kind of being like not addressing them, since this whole shot is basically a point of view shot, right? Like first person. So the whole time that she's looking at the audience from an acting standpoint, right? If she's looking at that, like if I'm looking at you here, you know, it's a little bit different. But if she's like looking, she's like, I'm sorry. And if it's any consolation, you know, I have heartburn that is radiating my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since. This is the point where all of a sudden she cuts off, because before that, she's looking. You know, she does one little like look up, and that's to signal like, oh, I'm thinking, and then down into it again. Looks back at the camera, at the person. You know, this is another signaling. She's looking up, she's like thinking, and I have it, and then she goes into this internal, right? So that's the whole way. It seems like a lot going into a short shot, but this is how I try to think about my acting without overthinking it, because you can get into like nitty gritty stuff. But basically the way I'm thinking of, she's externally projecting to the customer, right? The audience. Until right here, and that's when she goes internal. And then right here until the end, that's why she's like, I haven't taken a dump in, and then she's like, she stopped thinking about the customer, she stopped thinking externally. This is giving her that one moment to breathe and be like, oh, my life's a mess. Like, that's what I'm reading from the acting and how I would play the subtext. So I would personally not have her look. I don't think it's wrong to have her like look back Wednesday morning. Because you could have it be like she's more externally like thinking about the customer, right? And being, depends on how you're playing the story and how you want to play the acting, since it's your shot, you know. But like if this was my shot, I really like that contrast of she's like trying to please the customer, and like, you know, if it's any consolation, like she's really trying to put it on and tell them like what a bad week that she's had and all this. That's very external and like trying to make the customer happy. And I really like that switch and that contrast of all of a sudden she goes internal, and then she's kind of having this panic moment like Wednesday morning. Like she just loses, like she doesn't even remember the customer's there at that point. And like as the audience, you know, you have that eye contact, especially since this is like a first person point of view. You're having that eye contact and that connection, right? And as soon as, so as an audience, if someone's looking at us, we're going to look at them, right? Eye contact is important. So the minute that she cut, and since you're being so like steadfast, which I think is a great idea of like really keeping eye contact, except for little tiny moments where she's thinking, or, you know, eye darts more or less. I like that you have this definitive moment where she like looks away, and as an audience that will cut us off to start thinking about like the bigger picture, right? Of like, oh, she's thinking internally, because you make that connection so you can break it, which is super powerful, and using it in the right times. Yeah. So that was my very long-winded, very acting-based explanation of why I would take out that look. But like I said, if you like it and if you want to take your shot in a different direction, since, you know, it's a personal shot, like, keep it. I don't think it's wrong. I just think it's a little bit more powerful to keep her looking away, in my opinion. But that's kind of my feelings about the look. But I'll take a look at the whole thing again and give you some expressions, because that's super fun. Today's going to be kind of like an expression-based discussion feedback. I know EOP sent me a shot, and actually he didn't send me a shot, but we're going to look at like the rigs that he's using. I'm going to give some tips on like facial posing. So today will be, since you're doing expressions and like getting deep into like face expressions and posing the face, we'll kind of do a little face posing demo, because that's one thing that like I really love doing, and appeal is something that's really difficult to learn, because I feel like a lot of schools kind of like skip over that, especially when you're learning and first learning how to pose the face. It's a lot, and there's just like lots of tips and tricks that make it easier to get that appeal quick. That way you can focus more on acting and being really having specificity in your poses. So let me go ahead and look through again and watch for expressions this time.
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday morning.
I really like what you're doing so far. Everything's feeling really nice and clean.
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is
the eyes feel way better this week,
and I haven't taken a dump since
really appealing
Wednesday morning.
And I like how you're getting already some of the mouth shapes in there that are really making, you know, you don't have lip sync fully in yet, but you're getting the feeling of it so far, and like putting in your important shapes, which I think is a good idea. So this could be, I'm going to be picky because we're getting into expression, so I'm going to start going crazy. But one thing that I would say, I'm not sure if it's the angle or just the play blast, but it looks like there's shadow here. And Aya has a weird thing where, like, honestly, it's been a while that I've worked with Aya, so I'm not sure if it's her main brow control that you can move in Z, or if it's this little control. It's like this yellow control in between her brows that kind of moves this whole portion of skin up or down, or, you know, in Z depth, which is useful from the side, you know, because then you can pull it out if her brows are more knitted. But when her brows are up like this, I don't know, there's just something kind of strange about how it feels right here. Like, I'm seeing almost like a shadow there. So just check that, see if there's anything weird on any of your brow controls, like going really far back in Z depth or something, because it's enough that it stands out to me. And then as for like her brows here, also, why did this go real tiny? Oh. So for her brows, they still feel like, for lack of a better word, a little bit clunky to me. The shape's kind of complicated. I might try to simplify it a bit. You can kind of keep this little dip here if you want, but I just may not go as severe with it because Aya has she has such thin, like pencil thin brows that it can be really difficult to shape them. Yeah. So what I do with Aya's brow, or what I did on my lash out with Aya's brows that I did not do before using Aya like 4 times is, because Aya, like, she has kind of multiple ways to pose her brows, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the middle brow, like, if you're using that mover to rotate in Z to get, like, the deep, you know, in, or, like, the roundness, because it will kind of default into, like, 2 different shapes, don't use that. I find that I get better shapes with her if I move, like, translate and rotate the macro controls, so not rotating that. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Especially since she does have, like, a down angle on her head. You probably can't move it up that far. Yeah, that's fine. So, if you're using just the main brow mover control to, like, move it up, and, like, you're not using I think she has, like, 3 mini ones. There's, like, 1 in the middle of that main brow mover, and then, like, 3 others. Try seeing if you can move this top one up any, just to get them a little bit more rounder, or maybe even, honestly, an option might be, instead of doing that, to drop, can I drop? There we go. To drop this outer brow a bit. Maybe just dropping it might help. I'm not sure. Let me see. Can I not delete? There we go. One thing also that might help, I just thought of, check and see if you click on the geo, if you have a smooth mesh on for the brows. I don't do it, I has a slow rig, so I generally, like, if I'm just working on her, you know, working on my shot with her, I won't keep it on all the time, but if I really want specific face poses, it changes a lot. Like, I think with Aya, also her setting on, like, her root control or her layout control is, you can do, like, render, or proxy, or play blast, or anim, I think it's called. So just check that, see if, like, you can get those brows, like, smoothed out a little bit. It might help just to see what the shapes are. Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, I did that too sometimes. Like, would just use that main brow control to, like, for my TY, and then everything else with the macros. But yeah, so just see if you can get a little bit of this swoop out, basically. This eye feels great. I really like that shape on her. You kind of got, like, that round top, and then kind of not quite a straight on the bottom, but a little bit more of a straight curve. I guess that works. But this eye feels a little odd. I'm not sure if it's the rotation of her head, because right now it feels like she's smack dab on. Also, yeah, if she's on low res, yeah, sometimes if I'm, like, polishing face poses, again, I do not keep this on the entire time when I'm animating with Aya in a shot, because otherwise she will be aggressively slow and slow down your scene, even a simple scene with nothing in it. So, but if I'm polishing poses and I just need to see the pose and I don't really need to see motion, at that moment, I will turn her on high res and then maybe even go in and like select her geo and like smooth mesh her brows just so that way they're clean and I can see what it would look like. Obviously, if I'm rendering it, that's what it's going to be, but it's just kind of a nice way to make sure that everything's working. Especially, I find that changes with mouth shapes on characters too. Like, I will always play blast with smooth mesh on my character geo, especially if you're using rigs like Artemis and Apollo that have really detailed like blend shapes when they go into like, you know, skin folds and creases. Those rigs look like different rigs when you turn on smooth mesh with like the body geo. So just something to keep in mind if you want like a really pretty play blast and you don't want to be horrified to turn. I remember doing that. I did a shot with Artemis and I was like, wow, she looks so pretty. And then I was like, man, I really wish her eyebrow, like, you know, wrinkles like in her forehead would show up. And I showed it to Daniel because it was like the short film we were working on, and he said, oh, just turn smooth mesh on. That's like why you're not seeing any of the details in the face. I was like, oh, really? Let me turn that on. And I turned it on and I was like, what is this? My poses look awful. So I had to go through and like fix a lot of stuff because it looked weird. And when we started rendering it out, it would render it with the smooth mesh, and I was like, oh, this is awful. So just a random little tip for you, if you ever want to render out a shot, make sure that you check your poses. You know, you don't have to keep it on all the time, but check your poses with smooth mesh on, because sometimes monstrosities will make themselves known.
I'm sorry.
But, oh, like I was saying with the eye here, this eye feels great. I just wish it was kind of the same with this eye. Something's a little bit odd about, I know you're kind of getting into like bridge of nose territory here, but I would still try to move that eye over just a bit. Or just, if anything, you don't even have to move the eyelid over from this section, because you're probably at max until you start getting weird deformations there in the skin. So what I would do is basically just round out this top a little bit more and just make that apex more like this eye. Like, I love how you have like the apex of the eye kind of over here. Same thing, but here. You can get away with a pretty good amount of nose rotation sometimes. So I'd play it, you know. Don't worry with that. Like, just see if you can get just like a subtle, but since this is just your main pose, like I'd really try to get as much, and it's very like straight on, and she's going to be in this for a while. I would really try to get her this pose like golden and like put in as much asymmetry and appeal as you can for a small pose, right? I love this mouth shape. That feels really nice. Just a note to think about when you start getting into splining expressions. This is going to be critical of like, I like that you're scaling the irises and pupils down, but just make sure that you're doing 90% of the work with the eyelids coming up and her being like, you know, instead of it just like the eyes scaling down. I see a lot of people do that, and it always looks just a little odd. So just make sure that like the eyes lids themselves are doing 90% of the work, and then accent that with like the pupils getting smaller. Then maybe even the irises, maybe not as much as you have now, just because it's really extreme watching.
I'm sorry, and if it is any...
I think that's a good place to change it, right? Because you have this big extreme of like, boom, like you can change it easily there. So it's just basically throughout, you know, I'd cover that with like a, I'm sorry, like a blink, and then the head coming up a little bit more, just so that way it's not as jarring once you start adding in blinks and stuff like that.
I'm sorry.
This is, again, picky note, but it'll matter because of your eye shapes here. Her eyes feel just comparatively, like seeing where she's looking here, I feel like she's looking, you know, at the character, or at the customer, that's the word. She's looking at the customer here, but it just feels, her eye line just feels, especially this eye, feels like a little bit low here. You know, I think if you did something a little bit more like you're drawing and you're drawing up here, where her head was a little bit more up, I think that would work, but just it feels everything is just a little too hunched with her eye line. I feel like her eyes should just be up just like a hair, like, again, super picky, but that's too far to the side. But basically, like literally just ever so slightly up. Yeah, I think like they're like literally ever so slightly, but just a little bit up because it just feels a little too low right now. And make sure, so Aya has issues with this sometimes, but it's better to, I think, sometimes to deal with the skinning issue she has more than this here. But right now you have the brows coming down, right? She's going into this really like, I'm sorry, like crunched expression, like I'm sorry. And she's kind of still like wide eyes because she's scared, right? Either she's going to lose her job or she's worried that the customer is going to flip or she's in internal turmoil. So you kind of have this contrasting expression of she's really scrunched, but like her eyes are wide. She's like, I'm sorry, pleading. So the brows are coming way down, right? And to get that compression. But when our brows come down and they come in, they put a lot of like, you know, a lot of rigs will have this, which Aya doesn't have, but they have like a brow, usually it's called like a brow meat control or underbrow or whatever. But it's basically a control for right here. So when you go down into this squash, see how like my eyes do it a little bit different because the skin on the top of my brow comes over my eye, but it still will a little bit to less extreme on most people of like that skin is going to press down into the crease of your eye, okay? So this crease, you can't really ever scrunch your brows that far down and still see a really deep crease in the back. Like see here, like you can kind of see like a crease in this inner corner, which is fine. Like you can see a little bit, but I'd back off of it even like a little bit more just to give the feeling of that skin like pressing into her eyes. That's what gives a lot of compression because it feels like the brows aren't moving independently and they're actually affecting the skin around that eye mask. Like that underneath of that brow is part of that eye mask area. So I would really see what you can do to press it down, right? Just to show. And Aya has an issue sometimes where that if you put down her creases a bunch, it will show a bit of that underskin. Her eye creases, I mean. Like if you put down her eye creases, it will show a bit of that underskin of the brows, but it shows too much and it looks kind of weird. So be gentle with it, don't go crazy. But yeah, basically what I would do is here, I think this is good, like just bringing down that crease, using those macros to get it down just a bit. And just showing that. This is a nice pose, I like it.
I'm sorry, and if it is...
Those brows feel good there.
I'm sorry, and if it... I'm sorry.
Just here, like from... I like the eye shape you're going for here. I really love this that you have. You know, it might have not even been intentional, but... This is... Pin back. But I really like this shape, like where you kind of have like a straight up here and then curved in. That's always appealing. I might bring this outer in just a bit more. You know, and then I try to kind of mimic that on the side because that's really nice. This is going to be a fast move, right? But so you're not really going to see it for that long, but that's almost more of a reason to make it count. Also, I would just drop this eye a little bit more. Like this is the area where I want to see these lids compressed. You know, this brow like pushing down into the lid. So I'd rotate the nose and Y a little bit, like towards the other way. Just that way, like the tip of the nose. Same angle in Z you have, but just the tip of the nose is like here. if that makes sense. Also, see if you can push these eye bags up just a little bit, because this cheek's still being affected, right? So I think Aya has under eye like bag controls, but just check, see if you can move or raise the cheek if she has a cheek raiser or something, like raising it up into it. I like the brows here. I think they're good.
Sorry.
Squishy head, Aya.
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since.
Nice.
I'm sorry, and if it is any.
Same kind of note about the brows here, of like maybe just trying to watch out for that. Where it's breaking, I think, is what I'm having more of an issue with than like the shape itself. But just like it feels like it's kind of breaking here, which is kind of odd. Like, see if you can get something a little bit more like that. I feel like here's the area where we could really push the asymmetry too. Because you have a little bit of it, but I would just like amp it up a bit more of the asymmetry. Because she lives within this kind of expression for a while. You know, she's pretty much in it until like about here, and little nuances change. But so you really want this to be pushed as much as you can. I'd try. You know, basically just taking what you already have and just playing around with it. Or maybe even doing something crazy like this. Maybe bringing down this eye a little bit more. I'd love to see still, since she's really like, she's talking in a smile like this. If it is any consolation, I'd love to see a little bit more. Because right now she's like, if it's any consolation, she looks a little crazy because like there's no tension in those lower eyelids. You don't want a bunch because she's not doing like a huge smile where she really needs to show like those cheeks pressing up, but I would love just to see like a little bit of like almost like a reverse you know, C curve in those lower eyelids, just a touch. See how it feels. It may feel kind of like too much on her because she has really big eyes. See if that helps a little bit. I might, just for appeal's sake, like puff this cheek out a little bit. That's too much what I just drew. You know, I wonder if we could basically take the exact same mouth expression that you have, but just rotate it a little bit and like bring it over, like transx this way. I think honestly you could get away with it by just taking like her squash controller and like translate it in X, just to get a bit more of like that feeling through. You know, pushing up this brow a little bit. That might be too much, like adding a nasal fold there, but just see if you can like introduce just a little bit. Sometimes what I like to do when I get into like nitty, take my advice here with a heaping of salt. But what I like to do sometimes when I get into like nitty gritty polish, two things. One, that I like to do face polish, I'm talking about specifically like posing the face, not in spline. But I'll take the top like head squash control and just move it over ever so slightly to like favor whatever side of the face I'm trying to open. or whatever side of the face I'm trying to compress. Just so like basically it would be ever so slight, but I might move it so that way like, you know, everything's just kind of like brought over just a little bit. You know, this probably is too much what I drew, but basically just moving that head over just a little bit to kind of like cheat that line of action. I think I drew too much, but hopefully you get the idea of like, it just makes it a little bit more appealing and gets you a lot for free of like directionality through this section, because I find that this is always a really hard section of like, not the eye mask, but like right underneath, like underneath the eyes and like the cheekbone area, which obviously like cheekbones don't move much, but the skin around them does. So I might try that. And then one thing that I don't think Aya has it, but like Apollo and Artemis have, which is really nice, and a lot of other rigs, is like they'll have, you know, a special little diamond control here where you can like move it over and it will kind of move this whole area right here. So it's a mid squash control, and so I love those because you can really like open up a face quick and get some life and some, like I said, directionality in that kind of area right there. That's a little bit more difficult to get some of that in. But you can basically do that just by cheating it with, you know, your other squash controls.
Any consolation, I have
Watch out the eye here. I'm a stickler for Aya's eyes, of just really being specific and shaping out her eyes to be round and as appealing as possible, because she has a lot of eye to work with. I would try to cut down on this a little bit more again and get the apex over that pupil. This eye feels a little bit high in terms of eye direction. I might move this eye down just a bit. Now that eye feels too low. Yeah, I think this one's fine. I think it's just this one that needs to be moved over a little bit. Here, basically the same note of like getting that directionality with the face. I might try to, again, literally keeping this expression, but just moving it over a little bit, getting this eye involved, the cheek involved a little bit more. You know, just trying to get a little bit more of this direction, which I think you can do almost all of it with that lower squash control and just moving it over a bit.
I have heart.
And also, you know, opening up this brow a little bit more. This might be too much what I drew, but
I have heartburn.
I'm not entirely sure about this mouth shape. I like the idea of it. I just what does she say?
I have heartburn.
I have heartburn. It'd be kind of nice if we're going for that. Like, I have heartburn. Like, she's kind of like the lips go to the side and kind of do like a Simpsons mouth for a minute. I think that could be good. Just, I'll wait to say anything about that until like you start getting into lip sync, because I think that will change once we get into lip sync. If that's like a specific shape going, like a transition shape going from like the H into the ah. Like the heartburn, I think that could work. But just right now it feels a little out of place. And like if you're gonna keep it, I just wanna like see this cut in a little bit more. And then just have the apex of like that lip curl in the top, you know, since you're having more of like this shape. You know, have this apex, instead of it being right in the middle, I would try to have it be like more here. If that makes sense. Like the blue, like right now what you have is like the red, and I would kind of do like the blue. So just like bringing it over a little bit more, just to be more graphic and like be very specific about it, because I like the shape, I like the idea of it. It just needs to be a little more like intentional feeling, a little cleaned up.
I have heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since. Heartburn that is. I have heartburn. I have heartburn that is I have heartburn that is I have heartburn that is
I wonder if you, maybe not, but I wonder if you could possibly get away with right here, because she's just in this very same eye expression the entire time, which isn't a bad thing, but I'm just wondering if there's any way we could plus it and make it a little more, like, interesting. Of, I have heartburn, like, I have heartburn, like, maybe she could she could have a little bit of compression at one point. It's kind of subjective of where you'd want to do it.
Like, what's a consolation? I have heartburn that is consolation. I have heartburn that is radiating my kneecap. Consolation. I have heartburn that is radiating my consolation. I have heartburn that is consolation. I have heartburn that is consolation.
Maybe on where I might do it is like, I have heartburn. Like, I have heartburn. I think that could kind of go with your gesture too, like the body of like, I have heartburn. Like, it's kind of a contrast of like she's going up here of that anticipation. It's almost like you're anticipating with the eyes and like the face as well. So I have heartburn. So that could maybe try it out. If that's something you want to do, just like maybe doing a compression.
Sorry.
You know, something a little more like along the lines of like 50% of this kind of pose and this kind of like compression. But here, heartburn. I have heart. Well, there's also there's also something nice about if you could do that compression on burn, because it's a burn, because it's a, you know, a B shape, and that's when you have lots of compression in the mouth.
Any consolation. I have heartburn that is.
Yeah. Okay. I take back what I said. I would probably do it around like heart. I have heartburn. Like maybe just like a little, and maybe not even like a full faced like huge compression. But just something in the brows. Like I have heartburn. That way you can go up into that burn, because that's what she has, like a nice like little of her voice when she goes heartburn. Like it kind of it goes up. I always like to mimic sounds in my animation with like sight, like kind of giving sounds a visual are kind of a fun thing to do.
I have heartburn that is.
I have heartburn, and then that's when like she could expand into the shape that you have. You know, maybe here she's. Obviously not as extreme as I'm drawing, but I just wonder if this could be fun, just to give like something different. Obviously, again, not this extreme, but just to, I think you could really push it of like everything just kind of coming in and getting some compression in there just to feel really nice and something different, something interesting. Yeah, this is too much when I'm drawing, but just to give you the idea of just having something that's compressed. Just a little moment of like heartburn, and then she comes up and so you can kind of see, even just my terrible drawing, you can kind of see just like the feeling that I'm wanting to go for, like heartburn, like of just that boom, like that compression. And something that's also really nice that I would probably, for something like this, I would build this into my posing for like my blocking plus. But one thing that I love to do, like once you start getting to spline, I'll go over it. But to give you a sneak peek of like what my favorite method is I do something called the squash and stretch method. It's actually, I learned it from Daniel through his boss at Ember Lab, Hunter, who I now know and I've learned it from again. But basically it's the thought of like you'll take a pose library and you do a squash, like extreme squashed face pose, and then an extreme stretched face pose. And then once you get like basically like mid spline on the face where you're comfortable with where you're at, and then you're just polishing arcs and stuff like that. then I go in and I put it on a layer, and I layer on squash and stretch in different areas. Sometimes I'll do it actually just on the base layer, but a lot of times, just to be fast and to preserve animation, I'll do it on a layer and then bake it down later. But it's really nice because that gives you a lot of fleshiness for free. So you take those moments that you blocked in of like, okay, so here, you know, on burn on like 156, I'm gonna block in like a squashed pose. But I like this pose here, and I don't necessarily want to key down the entire face and like noodle it, where I have way too many keys than I actually need. So for something like this, but I still want to overshoot with the whole face, right? Or just the eye mask or whatever it is. What's nice about the squash and stretch method is you can keep those two poses and then just layer on top of it, like squash and stretch with the face, and everything's moving together. It's connected because you're moving the whole face as a unit in a good way. I know it's usually a bad connotation, moving things as a unit in animation, but it's a really nice thing to be able to block in, and it really amplifies your workflow and speeds it up a ton because you're not having to block in overshoots with the brows and compressions with the face and the jaw and the cheeks and the squash and stretch. It's just a nice way to get it for free. So that's something that we can go over in the next few weeks, or maybe me or Daniel can do a demo on it, because it changed my life. Genuinely changed my life when I learned about it, and made me be able to get to polish so much quicker on my shots because I knew what was coming and I knew I didn't have to block those things in. So it saves you a lot of time and this phase of animation where you're blocking in the face and really trying to get every detail in there. So just a nice little tip, and maybe we can do that in the next few weeks. This is good. I like the mouth shape that you have. Again, maybe moving this eye apex over just a bit. You know, this is the area where you could actually drop that lid a lot because you burn, like everything's very, like, you know, expanded. There's something in a way kind of appealing about this cheek that comes out and in here, but I might tone it down just a bit because she is so like that jaw is dropped, like everything's very dropped, and she's very like expanded in this. So with that, like, it's hard to keep the cheeks full when you have a stretched expression. So I might bring this cheek in a bit. Maybe try doing something a little bit more simplified with the brows here. I see why you're not, because you're going into this. I think it's okay. I might be tempted to do something a little bit more like this with the brows, just to simplify them a bit and to make this expression really clear, because right now I feel like the intent of the expression isn't super clear. Like, she kind of has like angry brows a little bit, but they're raised, so it feels surprised, but then she's got like a shocked expression on her eyes. So I would just try to simplify it and like unify all those ideas and to make it just make it a little bit more of like an expansion of just like, can you believe this? Like, heartburn? Like, heartburn? Like, she's kind of like, oh, listen to me, I have heartburn. So I just might try to make that a little more clear. It's John. Hi, John. John, do you have more dancing baby? I want to see a dancing baby. So watch out here. This is going to be an issue when you start getting to spline. This top part of the brow is almost staying in the same place on the face, and then that outside brow is coming up and down. And that's kind of all that's moving, and so it feels like one part of the brow is pinned in place, and that's never what you want to do, right? You want the whole brow moving, now offset a little bit, but as a general rule, you want the brow moving as, you know, a unit up and down. So here, maybe you could do something a little bit more like this. Same idea, but just like a more gentle slope to it. Maybe bring them in a little bit to come up, because that's something you'll probably want to do when you get to spline. The brows are coming down this far. maybe something like that, and then they can come up. Oh, that's sad, John. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that you had a bad week. That's okay. Dancing Baby will reign another day. We'll wait in anticipation.
Burn that is radiating my.
I would drop on heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps, and then like pop up into that expansion of like radiating in my kneecaps. Just because right now it feels it's a lot going on with the brows. I would just simplify that because right now it feels like she's like here and then a little bit open and then like really wide and then like the brows kind of drop. So I would just simplify that into
Burn that is.
heartburn that is radiating in my kneecaps. Right? It can almost be I think she looks here. Isn't it? Yeah. So she looks. So it's a heartburn that is radiating my kneecap. So just like have the whole face compress a little bit, so that way you kind of can expand it, bring it up a bit. Also, I just realized my webcam's like super low. I'm sorry, but yeah. So just having that like that compression will help, I think. You know, so here maybe it's still down. So I keep forgetting to draw the brows coming in. Can I not delete? There we go.
Radiating.
And then here, like, it will feel nice because it will almost feel like you're dragging the brows on her coming down. Because heartburn that is, heartburn that is radiating in my kneecap, So.
Radiating.
So maybe you could keep it a little more, maybe her mouth, once you start getting it, won't be as open here. Maybe these lids are just a little bit further up. Just something to kind of like really push this point home of she's thinking and you're just kind of like separating those thoughts and just making them feel a little bit motivated, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I think these are good. That eye shape's good. Just like maybe play around with bringing this up a little bit, like raising that cheek, getting a little bit more compression until she goes into radiating, which then this works. I would see if you can just either like shorten the end of this brow or bring this tail up a little bit. It just feels a little odd. And I know Aya's really difficult because like her brows want to point down like this way whenever she have her eyes, like eyebrows raised up like this for like a little half circle. But see if you can use some of those macro controls. And what I've done on Aya before is like you can rotate a little bit with like an inner control and then counter rotate in Z the mid control, or the opposite. You can like rotate with the mid control and then counter rotate, and it like makes a smoother arc, which is really dumb, but you gotta do it sometimes. So that's animation, baby. That's imposing the face is dumb fixes for things sometimes. Here, I like this expression a lot. I was talking like last week how I love the mouth pose and all that, but one thing is I feel like we lose her creases here for her eyes, and so it just feels a little odd. And this eye just feels almost too buried. Maybe bringing it down a little bit, just in terms of eye direction, will help. This feels good. I might see if you can bring, like, this is again really picky stuff, but your poses are looking really good. So maybe bringing up just this mouth corner a little bit, just because right now like both the mouth corners are on the same plane, like they're exactly the same and feel a little bit symmetrical. So just maybe see if you can push that and just make it feel a little more asymmetry, all that good stuff. Same note about the brows here, maybe bring these up a little bit and just see if you can get by counter rotating, like get this mid-brow up. I'd also try to really rotate the nose here. You know, maybe get it more like this.
My kneecaps and
eyes. Something like that. I like how you have this asymmetry here. Push it more. Like, I'd go for it. This is fun. You know, she's got kind of like that going on. You know, maybe this brow is really far up. This is maybe too pushed, but try it. Just see what happens, right? You can always Control Z. Might try to like bring up that nostril a little bit. Just because she's like, and so maybe it'll go up a little bit more.
I haven't taken. I
Yeah, this so right here will be like the point where you start like changing the alligator of the face, right? Because you have her like here, so it's gonna be open. You know, I'm looking at myself mirrored in a webcam, but basically like you're gonna be open one way, and then as she turns, you're gonna open the other way to the face, and so it's kind of be like, I like to think of it as dragging the head and dragging the top of the head and the chin in a broad sense, because it's kind of fun to like whoop, like swoop it. So here will be when you start like getting, because she's starting to favor the other side, so this is when you're going to start getting the alligator the other way, which you're already doing a little bit with like the mouth and like the eyes, so just like I would get into the brows a little bit quick. Okay, cool, yeah. Yeah, just something to keep in mind when you start like putting more info into your in-betweens. This is nice. Right here too, I also feel like we're losing her creases of her eye. Just watch out for that. Pull them up a little bit. Make sure we can see them. Otherwise, it just kind of feels weird, like they lose them all of a sudden, because Aya has really deep set creases. I like that mouth pose. I'm going to bring this over a little bit more. Get some more asymmetry here. The brows. Very subtle like stuff, but just really like polishing and plussing these face poses that you already have. Also, I try to get this eye a little less cat eye. Like maybe even open it a little bit, a little wide. Since you're doing this like transition, this would be a good place to flare the eyes a little bit.
I haven't taken a dump since when.
This feels really nice. I like this face pose.
Since
I like the idea of this pose of like the mouth kind of going. I haven't taken dump since. Like she kind of like broadens her mouth there. It could be. I like that. I just might back off of it a little bit, because right now it feels really stretched to the point like it's almost broken. Not quite. So again, minuscule notes, but you know, maybe just, what am I drawing? Madison? Okay. But you know, maybe just to here, just bringing it in a little bit. It just feels like it might be a little bit too, yeah.
Since Wednesday.
Watch the mouth here to really try to like, anytime the mouth is open and you have a character from, you know, a 3/4 view onward to profile, I always try to like cut into this mouth right? Like really trying to cut in here just to make it super graphic and to make it feel more like a 2D shape instead of like a 3D mouth bag that you have to fight with, right?
Wednesday.
I know you said you just worked like on the beginning to the mid mostly, so if I'm like, I'll just quickly give like a little things that I still see that you probably already know or like you're planning to fix, so I don't want to inundate you with notes, but yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I think it would be good. I think it really adds contrast. That's something I still struggle with in my work, like finding areas to make a character be still is difficult for me. I'm like, oh, they must be moving the entire time and I need to have movement. I'm still not good at it. I still have to sometimes take stuff out, and that's a note that I get sometimes from, people or leads or my bosses, like, tone it down. Like, make it more chill, have areas where there's not so much movement. And it's hard to find those because sometimes it feels scary to me personally, like therapy time with Madison, but sometimes it feels scary to have a character still because then I have to rely on specifically just my posing, and subtle movement to me is more difficult as much as it is easier. It's easier in the sense of like whenever I have a subtle shot, it's waist up. Basically, I'm doing copy head method. I'm doing the head and then copying those curves down to the torso, but it's also scary because when you have a character that's still, any movement looks huge, right? Because they're still, so any movement that happens, your eye's going to be drawn to that as the audience. So it's always kind of scary for me to do a subtle shot or like to make a character be still in a scene all of a sudden, because then I feel like people are really looking at the movement. Because with broad, you can get away with a lot, right? You can get away with different things and hide your sins in it, but with subtle, I feel like sometimes issues or mechanic issues that I struggle with are more apparent, but it's so worth it when you actually do it because it gives the character contrast and it makes them feel more alive and more natural and just not like they're rushing through a scene, right?
Wednesday.
But yeah, here just basically like you may already be doing this, but just kind of round the eyes out here, make sure the apex, all that stuff that like I talked about last week. And again, like cutting into this mouth corner, hide those teeth. I might even hide the bottom teeth altogether and just have the tongue here. Obviously this is more of like a lip sync note, but
Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning.
But yeah, I think that would be my main notes.
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation.
Sorry, I gave you almost like an hour and a half of just face notes, but hopefully that helped. I know I always appreciate whenever like I have someone give me like lots of face notes when I'm getting into polishing, because you stare at it so long, it's so difficult to see what needs pushed, or what expression feels too much of the same throughout a shot. I struggle with that a lot. I've stared at my shot for too long that I don't know where to go sometimes with expressions, so it always helps to get someone else's eye on it and say like, oh no, do this, or did you think of doing this expression? So hopefully those help. But yeah, AJ, do you have any more questions or anything else that you wanted me to take a look at? No, while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to make sure I have EOBs linked. Cool. Okay, cool. I think I have everything. And EOB, if you're here, let me know if you sent me like an actual scene that you want me to take a look at or anything else. Right now, it looks like from what I opened, you just sent me the Lindsay rig and the Milan rig, which thank you, that's cool. I already have those rigs, so if you want me to like specifically open up your shot and pose out some faces or do something like that, I can do that. But if not, I can just go as I was planning to do and like open the rig and just show you how I would pose a face or how I would do a certain pose. So yeah, let's see, AJ, awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so for next week, because you're kind of in blocking plus, I mean, honestly,
I have heartburn.
It just kind of depends on what you
that is radiating to my kneecaps, and I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday.
You know, like, obviously, like you said, you're still addressing notes in the end, I think, so finish up those notes, and then I would start going into spline, honestly, and I would just focus on mainly just cleaning up the face. I really don't see any body stuff that's stuck out to me. Let me watch it again just to make sure, but...
I'm sorry, and if it is any consolation, I have heartburn that is radiating.
Yeah, the body feels good to me.
And I haven't taken a dump since Wednesday.
Yeah, you might need more info from here to here, but it just depends on how comfortable you are, like, because right now it feels a little choppy. This is the only section with the body that feels choppy to me when I watch it at speed. Of just like that turn, I feel like needs a little more information in it, but it depends. It's really preference if you feel more comfortable doing it splining work, or if you'd rather block in like a few in-betweens or a pose just to make sure that all that information is defined and that movement is a little bit more defined. But other than that, like, I would say like
Wednesday,
you're good to start blocking or start splining, and maybe even blocking in some lip sync, however you like to do it. But
I'm sorry, and if it is...
Yeah, mainly just clean up poses, and then if you feel like there's anywhere else that you're not comfortable splining in your in-betweens, or like, you know, because a lot of times I work primarily in spline now when I'm doing work shots, but if I am doing a shot in blocking, usually I get out of blocking pretty early on, and I work mainly in spline, because that's just I did not used to be like that, but working changed me, and now I do everything with it basically in spline just for speed's sake, and also I kind of know now what movement I want, so I can go in knowing that, and a lot of the animation I've been doing has not been like pose based and more movement, more focus on movement, so yeah, it just depends on what you want to do. But yeah, that would be my main notes and what I think would be good to focus on for like the next week going into this. The shots really come together. It's fun to see it. Awesome. Okay, yeah. Cool. Okay, AJ, if you don't have any more questions, if anything, you can always DM me, but let's see. Yeah, awesome. I'm excited to start seeing it all splined out and see it all fancy. But yeah, great job, AJ. Okay, yeah, but let's see. We have Lindsay. So first I'll go ahead and like go through, give you notes on stuff. We'll take a look. And then I can go through and do face pose demo. Yeah, basically like if you want me to specifically, you know, look at anything, because I still don't see... Hold on, I'll check real quick. I think it's just the rigs that you sent me without anything else. Like no animation or anything. So if you want me to do specifically, you know, animate in your scene, send that to me, because it's like your Maya scene. Because right now these are just the rigs. But if not, if you just want me to like, if you want to say, hey, how would you like build a pose? I can just kind of like take a reference for something and then build a pose on top of that. And kind of show you how I pose the face and things that I think about while I'm posing the face. So let me take a look at your shot first. I think this is the... Okay, Lindsay polished. Cool. Nice. Nice, the movement's feeling really nice now. Cool. Okay, let me just take a look. So one thing, just to watch out overall, let me see, I think actually, So one thing when like, in terms of facial performance, something that like sticks out to me a bit is she blinks once in the shot, right? She closes her eyes a few times, but there's no, like she blinks, oh, I guess technically this isn't even a blink, this is just her, you know, closing her eyes. You know, it could be nice like after this, maybe here, blink. You know, here, this could be a blink. This feels a little unnatural that she's like, her eyes are open. She's like, ugh. Like when you go through a movement, a lot of times, or if you move your head a lot, like the best place to put a blink is when you turn your head. Because when a character's turning their head, because a lot of times if you watch people, whenever they turn their head, it's kind of your automatic body way of not getting dizzy. And because there's no information to take in when you're turning your head because you can't, you know, because you're about to look somewhere else if you're turning your head. So a lot of times that's where I'll put blinks if I'm having a character turn their head because it feels really natural to put it there. But also on big movements or antics too, you know, if she's going down, then, you know, maybe she blinks and then it comes up. Just places that you can add it to make it feel a little more natural, a little more alive with her face. You know, here you do a little bit of a blink, which is fine. You can do like a little half blink, right? You know, here you could add a blink maybe. Just something to help make the character feel more alive and feel a little bit more connected. She feels a little bit like wall-eyed, like her eyes are looking in two different directions. I tried to converge them a little bit. Like this one feels like it's looking away, like to the right of the pancakes. Might do something a little bit more like this. So it just kind of looks like she's looking directly at them. And it's always nice if you want to make a character look cute, you converge the eyes. So if the eyes are here, you bring them in. And then if you want to make a character look scary or a little bit insane, you take the eyes out a little bit. And make them more wall-eyed is what it's called, like when you bring the eyes out. So converging the eyes always makes the character look cuter. So especially if she's a kid, like I would make sure that the eyes overall are kind of in. Obviously you don't want it so far in that it looks like she's looking somewhere else that she shouldn't be. But yeah, I would just kind of keep that in mind. Let me... This is a cute face pose. Like here too with the eyes, right? Maybe something more like this. And this for the eye direction. And then I would round out the eyes. Right? Something more like this. No, I might try something a little bit more like this with the eyes. Bringing out some asymmetry, maybe bringing out that smile, maybe that's too much. Here, bringing this out, bringing that outer corner down. Rounding this out. Nah, that looks like she's looking too far away. maybe I would do something a little bit more like, nah, I don't like that. This is probably too extreme, but you know, maybe something like even as pushed as this, right? That could be kind of fun. So basically, like, overall, I would say to go through kind of what I was telling AJ last week of, like, do a pass going through your entire shot with a Lindsay and just round those eyes, like the top of the lids, right? Because right now you have, see this shape? Of almost like this teardrop shape. Well, not even that. It's a little more defined, like that kind of shape going on. And what's nice is to get like a rounder shape. Something like this, right? So like this is what you want here. And this is like not what you want. You don't want to cut off that eye, especially if she's a kid. She's going to be, you want rounder eyes. You want her to make it look bright, like really, especially on this rig, like her eyes favor a rounder shape, kind of like the Aya rig as well. So I would go through your entire shot and just try to really focus on making those eye shapes round. And like I'll kind of show how I do that with these rigs from default in my demo that I'll do. But you know, especially here, she's looking down, so her eyes, whenever we look at something close, like for the sake of science, I'll show this. So like I'll do this, right? Like to look at it, so your eyes will converge and they'll go in, right? The closer something is. So you do that to make a character look cute as well, but when they're looking at something close, like the eyes need to come in a bit, so that way they're looking at the thing that's close. Also, would you say, okay, cool, yeah. I can do that for you. Let me check real quick that way while I'm giving your critique. I don't think I got your actual scene here. Let me check again. Open. So this is the Lindsay project. Oh, there it is. Now it opened. For some reason I didn't see it earlier. Sorry about that. Cool. Okay. It looks like I have your scene then yeah, I'll go in and like I'll take a few poses and just show you how I would push or like how I would pose the face like in your shot. Yeah, while that's loading, I can keep giving notes. So yeah, sorry about that. For some reason, I checked it before I started streaming, and it was just showing, for whatever reason, yeah, just the rig and not the actual scene file. So also, why is cache playback on? No. Okay, there we go. Cool. Okay, so it looks like I have everything. Nice. So yeah, I think that'd be my main notes is really like before anything else, I would focus on rounding out the eyes. So I can just show you how to do that. We can go ahead and just jump into a scene. You can watch me animate in real time. I have yet to do this. Dan was the one that pioneered it, so hopefully I can do it as well, but we're gonna find out. Okay, let me move my arm a little bit. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna, might make me, hi Dan. Okay, so, okay. So first things, okay, so this is my first tip of like what I like to do. This is my shot cam. Cool. Oh, I love it when everything just loads in with someone else's shot and I don't have to repath anything. Okay, cool. So the first thing that I always do whenever I'm posing a face, I do this just with any shot in general, but especially when I'm posing a face because I am very specific about my how I see faces in the viewport. So the first thing I'll do is I'll select my camera of like my perspective camera, and then I'll go into my focal length and change it to 65. So 65 is, you know, larger focal length, so it's going to make the face just not appear as distorted and long. It's going to flatten things out a bit so you can actually see the face in its entirety and it's not distorting it. Because usually it's going to look good in the shot cam because the camera's farther away, so you need a lower focal length. Usually, sometimes on subtle shots they'll be higher. So for instance with this, so if I'm up this close, it doesn't look distorted, right? At 65, but if it's back to like where it was, like at 35, see how it just kind of looks distorted, like her face? And the more I zoom into it, see how like all of a sudden her nose looks really big and everything just kind of looks a little unproportional? So I always turn my perspective camera, no matter what at this point, to 65 because it's just easier for me. But so let's look through. Also, my Maya is being very strange. I'm not sure why. My timeline is very tiny, but that's okay. Also, why is it so fast? That's a little odd. Huh. Well, that's okay. I don't need to see motion. I just need to see. Okay, so let's just start with. So let's start with like the base pose, right? Let's start with here, our first opening pose, right? So for this, first thing I'm gonna do, I see is like the brows. And I have not used Lindsay Rig yet, so this is going to be a learning experience for all of us. But let's just go ahead and shorten this so I can see what's going on. I really wish I could move my graph editor, or not graph editor, time slider. That's fine. Oh well. I always keep my graph editor open even when I'm posing faces, just to make sure, like I always minimize it to pretty small, but I just like to make sure nothing weird is going on with the face, or I'm having no major gimbal issues, or like I'm not countering anything weirdly, so just something I like to make sure of. Get rid of that so I can kind of see what's going on here. So let's see, what does this do? Okay, object. So right now I just want to make her feel a little more like open, right? Because looking at her here, also let me do something real quick. Let me take all her controls, and just for sake of doing this, I'm going to key it down here, delete this. There we go. So that way now I can flip back and forth and we can see the difference between each. Okay, so let me go back to here to 7. So right now I want to open up her brows. This one down a little bit. Maybe I'll go this way with it. Also, I'm quickly learning how hard it is to talk and animate at the same time. But basically, like, just kind of, someone please remind me if I go quiet, because my brain starts going into animator mode and I forget that I'm streaming. But basically what I'm doing now is just kind of like rounding out these brows and just trying to make them as appealing as possible. And you'll see me like testing out a lot of things because again, this is a new rig. I've yet to actually work with the Lindsay rig, so I'm just kind of seeing what works best, if it's like translation, rotation, scale, to get the shapes that I want in my head. always a struggle on characters that, with inner brows of characters, I feel like I struggle a lot with trying to get really appealing like shapes at times at first until I figure out what works for that character. So I'm just gonna move this one down as a whole a little bit. Trying to round this out. So now I kind of work all over the place when I'm posing a face. I don't like to focus too long on one section. Like right now I was just like, oh, I still don't like the shape of the brows that I have, but so much about other things of the face I found can change how you pose parts of the face. They're all work together, so I like to work like quickly on little bits at a time. And I don't know if it's the most efficient thing, but I feel like that's when I get the best results, because I just kind of like work my way through the face over and over again. So like brows, eyes, nose, mouth, brows, eyes, nose, mouth, brows, eyes, nose, mouth. And I'll kind of like keep just going down that list and like refining stuff in passes. So with the eyes here, first thing I'm going to do is take this, move it over. See already, like that's looking a bit more appealing. Having that eye over there. Also, is this rotate? No. Okay. Get a little more sympathetic motion with like the eyes. Also, what is this move? Main shape? Okay. Eyelid, cool. So I'm just kind of moving stuff out. Also, what is going on? So if I have, she's looking at this bowl, right? So I want to bring these eyes in a bit. There we go. Bring this eye in a little bit. It's a little cross-eyed right now, but we'll fix that. Control over. Just I'm really, my main goal, especially when I'm posing like kids, is to just make their face look as round and squishy as possible. Rounder shapes always look good on kids, especially their eyes, because like if you look at kids, their eyes are way bigger than their head. Are way bigger in their head than most like adults, right? So I like to play that up. It makes them look really appealing and really cute. One thing I like to do a lot, sometimes it just depends on the rig, but like rotate Z of like the main eyelid control is always helpful. I'm gonna take in this because I don't like how, okay, cool, it moves with it. This is gonna be a bit more of an issue on the other side, but maybe all of this. But no. Okay, I think it's this that I need to fix. Okay. I'm very picky about how I have my eye shapes, because I feel like that makes or breaks a character, so I'll spend a lot of time on the eyes just to make sure that everything's working. So I'm not sure where the main, there it is. It's hiding from me. Oh nice, okay, that's Z depth, nice. I like to pull that up a bit to show that crease. So see now, like I'm doing that, so I'm gonna go up and move this eyebrow up more because I can see that I don't like the shape that's giving me. What does squeeze do? That's interesting. Does that do anything different from this? Okay. So now like I've kind of worked on that. And one thing that took me a long time to do myself, but it's really useful, is like move things around like crazy. If you really want to get a good pose, like don't be afraid of moving it. Because like whenever I watch like animators that I really respect their posing, and I think they have amazing posing, they move things around like crazy. Like they will move any macro controls or micro controls wherever. And that's something that I'm always scared of because I'm like, oh, once I get into spline, I'm gonna have to deal with all of that, which I still kind of do feel that way, and I definitely prefer using the biggest controls first to get as much as I can. This has changed over time. I used to be very much like, oh, I don't use micro controls at all. Like I like to get as much as I can with just the, macros, but at this point I really am very specific about how I like my poses, so I will just go in with whatever I need to. I will sculpt it if I need to. So I'm gonna do the same thing with these lower lids. Well, actually first I'm gonna fix this eye. I don't like where this is at. So I'm just gonna round this out a bit. Oh, is this an outer eye? Ah, that's what I wanted. So again, bear with me. I'm still trying to figure out how this rig works. So I want to use this outer eye instead. And then I can round it out with this. Question mark? It kind of does the same thing. That's kind of a weird control. Basically, I'm just playing with this until I find a shape that I like. What does this do? Oh, that's a kind of a cool control. Again, sorry, I feel like half of this has just been me going, what do I move? But hopefully it makes sense what I'm trying to do. But yeah, feel free to, especially like if you have any questions about like what I'm moving or why I'm doing it, if I'm not talking about it, like feel free to comment and ask. Right now I'm just kind of focused on like getting as clean of an eye shape as I can, something really appealing. I want it to look bright. Just trying to like curve that lower eyelid. Still not a huge fan of like what I have going on with this upper eyelid. Okay, there we go. I needed more white above the eye. I'm being silly. Okay, so I figured out I like this other control better, so I'm going to zero that out. I'm going to use this. A lot of my posing, especially when I'm posing with the new rig, is I usually do this before I get into a shot, but sometimes I don't have the luxury of that with work. Sometimes it's just like, okay, do this with the new rig, never worked with it before, go. So a lot of times me posing a rig is me trying to control, or like especially if there's two similar controls, like, for instance, to use an example, this eye rig, like this moves the outer corner of the eye, which works, and that's what I was using, but I like how much weight there is on this one. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to move the outer corner of the eye, I make a mental note if I'm going to use that one to move it. So a lot of me using a new rig is kind of that, of figuring out what controls I like for what, right? So, and that's just preference sometimes, and sometimes I just like how things work better. especially when you start getting into splines. Sometimes I like how they work better, so that's why I'm using them, but it just depends. I like that you can rotate all these controls too, that's nice. One thing, let's see. What is this control? Oh, that's beautiful. So one thing, like, I'm looking at her and I'm like, I don't like how small her pupils are. You're tired with the shape of the eyes. I get it. It's hard. A lot of times too, I found like it can take forever to find that one good shape that you want for the most of your shot. And then once you find it, you're good because you know how to get there. But it's knowing how to get there that's the difficult part. Sometimes that just takes a lot of time and just takes lots of posing time. And like I'd recommend, especially if you're new to posing faces, to just even in between your shots, keep posing faces and keep doing poses on your off time that, you know, only take a few minutes, but they will help you a lot. Just putting miles on the pencil, you know, theoretically, of learning how to pose and why to pose, you know, why to pose the way that you might. Sometimes it just takes time and practice. So I want her to be a little more smiley. And this, I kind of want, will this do anything? Nope. There we go. So ooh, no, that doesn't do what I want it to. What I'm looking for right now is like a Z depth control on the mouse. So see kind of how like I pushed that back and it curved the mouse back? That's something I always like to do to get a more graphic shape. Usually it's called like a Z depth control or like a pinch or a tuck. Because this kind of does the opposite of what I want. Ooh, I kind of like what that does though. And then here I kind of want to press, well, what does roll do? Let's see. Okay, that's kind of what I want. Maybe I'll do something like that. Move these down a bit. This feels a little too adult to me and I don't know why. I think it's how big these lips are maybe. I might lip roll. Oh yes, perfect. Maybe it's the space between the mouth. Yeah, it's the space. I don't know, Dan. Hold on, let me see. Where's my outliner? Hello? Outliner. There we go. Oh, it was right there. Hello. For some reason, I have Maya open on my tablet, which I never do, and it's decided to forget all of my preferences. Where is Lindsay? Here she is. Geo. Is that? Okay, these are hidden. Well, where is she? Head Geo. There we go. Okay, body. Let's see, attribute editor. There we go. Smooth mesh. Okay, cool. Yeah. So again, one of those things. It's nice to. Also, is the body included with the head? Smooth mesh is on there. Yeah, I figured. Okay. Oh, that's right. You can't use smooth mesh there. But that just how I was talking to AJ about make sure smooth mesh is on, and here I was not having smooth mesh on, and it changed my pose. Who would have thought? Anyways, a little detour there, but let me just kind of play around with how I want her mouth. Let's see. I don't really like the shape that I'm getting of her jaw right here. So I'll try to round that out a little bit. See if I can scale down this chin or something. Is this a jaw tweak? Okay, I'm guessing that's a chin. So see, I'm gonna scale it. I feel like that looks so much more appealing, like just having that chin rounded. It might look a little weird from the side, which might be something that we have to fix later, but this jaw, yeah, okay, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do the tweak. So just like, again, the same principles of like rounding out her face, rounding out everything, just to make her look more kid-like and to make it feel a little bit more, just a little more cute, right? So just right now, like we can see what I have like from here to here. See the difference? It's kind of crazy. It looks like a different character, and that's just with small tweaks, but just like rounding things out, bringing stuff in to the face, right? So you can kind of just see like the difference here of like very subtle differences, and it's the same essence of like, you know, the idea that you want. Like this is just your first starting pose, and she's passive, where she's just kind of looking and just, this is what I would call like a character idol, right? She's just looking, she's at the food, she's like taking it in, she's thinking about it. But just with little tweaks like that, you can get a lot more of an appealing face. So basically, like if you flip back and forth, you can see I brought the eyelids way in. And sometimes it feels like, or, you know, I'll give notes sometimes like, hey, like bring the eyelids in, or, you know, rotate the nose. And I don't mean like tweak. I mean like bringing the eyelids all the way in, or rotating the nose all the way over, because it's shocking how much you can push a pose, right? And like that, I'm not super happy with this pose. There's a lot more I would do with it, but like here's just one example of, actually just for funsies, I'll go ahead and like polish this up a little bit more, just so that way you can kind of see what I would do, like what else I would do that's different. Maybe make this a little bit more of like a button nose. Yeah, that I was going to do that, Dan, for sure. Like round out, especially like here. I don't really like how. Maybe we can even bring this in more. There we go. So like, see how much you can bring that eye in from like here to here? See how much like look for my cursor, like if I have it here and then I move it to here, look how much you can bring that eye all the way in, and it helps round it out, and it just doesn't look, it makes her look more young, more youthful, all that. Bring this up here. Again, just round, trying to make it as round as I can. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to all characters, because some characters, especially if you have like more Asian eyes or hooded eyes, you want to make sure that you're keeping the integrity of the eye shape. So again, this isn't going to apply to all characters. Like don't take some rigs and be like, oh, I'm going to round out the eyes because that's what looks better. But it just depends on, you know, what the character's eye is, because you want to stay true to the integrity of that eye shape. Especially like working on certain shots, I've had characters that have very, you know, almond-shaped eyes, and to round those eyes out would be to kind of erasing their race, and that's not a good thing to do either. So it just depends. You have to take this as a case-by-case basis, depending on what character that you have. With the Lindsay rig, you can do it because she has more of a rounder eye shape already. Just in default, she comes in. They're not really sculpted for her eye shape. So it just depends on how you're doing it. But yeah, that's kind of my little rant of don't take my words verbatim. And it's always a case-by-case basis for each character is going to be different. especially if there's already a style set in place for the character, right? If you're going on a show and they have characters that have a similar eye shape to like Lindsay Rig like this, but they're doing more of like a almond shape eye, you're gonna have to stay on model and do that. But since this is your personal shot, do whatever you feel is most appealing. So like that's why I'm doing this right now. Like this is what to me is most appealing on her, of rounder eye shapes and just kind of making things look a little more kiddish, kid-like. So yeah. So sorry, I was getting messages, making sure that I wasn't missing anything. But yeah, I think that's about what I would do for this. Maybe raise his brow up a little bit more. Let's see, can I get away with doing a little bit of this? Just a little bit. I also kind of want to move this mouth over a little bit more. Taking this top head control just a bit. Very subtle, not too much, because otherwise it can get crazy. But yeah, just a little bit. Like sometimes I even like to move the now this is not always, but yeah, see, like with her I don't like the weighting of how that works, but a lot of times I use the jaw to like round out stuff. Oh, like see, there's a secret I just found. It's really nice to rotate and Y these lower cheek controls. See how I'm just rounding out that face? This is fun. I need to pose the Lindsay Rig more often. I want to do a shot with her. She's so cute. I'm gonna do this. I don't like how wide this lip is here. Also, this is a fantastic mental challenge to try to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it as I'm animating, because in my brain I'm like, oh, this is just the thing that I do, but it helps a lot to actually talk it out. What does this do? Let's find out. Oh, that's what that does. Maybe I do kind of want a little bit of that. No, I don't. Maybe, yeah, I'm getting some weird deformations with the nose here, but yes, that's exactly what I want. Eob, this is what I want your shot to look like. Bring the nose all the way up. So there's still little things that I'm not, like, I would spend a lot of time, you know, going through, and I would say I spend majority of my time posing when it comes to like faces. Like once I get my poses in there, splining is really not a huge deal because I already know what I want, and now it's just finding the motion of it. So what is going on here? What is this? Okay, well that's strange. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, I've got some weird deformations going on in this cheek. I'm not a fan. And I'm constantly looking at my shot cam when I'm posing. Like I very rarely look away from it. Like even when I'm grabbing something, I'm looking at my shot cam right now and making sure it looks good there. I don't really care what it looks like in perspective. All I care is about what it looks like in the shot cam. Now if that changes a little bit, and like I've been working at Ember Las, so games, and I was, you know, had to care about what it looked like otherwise, and that's kind of a fun challenge in itself. But, you know, if you're doing personal shots that you're not putting in a game engine, or you're not having to look at these shots from 360 degrees, yeah, I don't care what it looks like in my shot cam, unless it's causing really bad problems with like intersections or stuff that could be an issue if I was sending this down a pipeline and it would have to be rendered, and then stuff would show up and it would be my fault if things broke. So again, everything within reason, but I still want a bit more. I don't like what it's giving me. Also, I feel like maybe I imagined it, but I thought that there was a mid-head squash, but maybe not. I think I imagined it. Excuse me. So now I'm just kind of going through, and sometimes like when I'm shaping eyes and things, I lose integrity of the pose and I have to go back and kind of fix that. Like just now I was like, oh, I'm not showing enough white above the eye over on the left side. So I was like, okay, time to go fix that. So I'll go fix that, shape some more, and that process just kind of repeats a lot for me. So that's just something to be aware of. Let me move it. Okay, there we go. Yeah, for sure. It is just practice. I remember when I was like first learning how to pose the face, my school, it was only like because I went to AM, and I think they have you do when you're first learning like facial animation, they say like do 2 poses a week for 3 weeks, I think. And then after that, it's just like animate. But I didn't feel comfortable enough posing the face, so I would do about 20 poses a week. Just throw away, like stuff that has never seen the light of day. A lot of times I wouldn't even save my Maya session, but I would just open a rig and I would just be like, pose, let's go. And I would either, when I was first starting out, I would always pose with reference from something. So either I'd use my own reference, or I would, sometimes I'd even look up like character expression sheets. A good one for, characters like this that you're going from around her eyes and like, little nose, stuff like that, button nose. Or Anna and Elsa, Frozen, model sheets are good to look at, expression sheets, to see, what their ideal version of an expression for that character is, and try to translate it to 3D, because that is a skill. Like, being able to know what controls you need to move to get a specific graphic shape in a 2D pane is really difficult to learn, and that is literally just mileage of just doing it over and over, and that's just practice, because if you don't practice it, you won't be able to do it because you haven't done it a ton. So it sounds excessive, like 20 poses a week, but I think that was my minimum of like what I was doing all throughout AM, like even in the earlier classes when it was just body poses that they wanted you to submit, like, a whole sheet of body poses and then pose out too. Like I would always pose out all of the poses on my sheet of gesture drawings that I would do. It was a lot of work, and it was all throwaway, so I technically have nothing to show for it because I did all this Maya work that I just wouldn't even save. But I think it was one of the biggest things in teaching me how to pose just by doing, And then taking whatever feedback I got from like my mentor or my peers of posing feedback and applying that to all my poses I do. So if when I was first learning faces, if someone said, I actually had I think it was actually Cynthia told me to round out the eyes when I was posing Aya, because that will make her more appealing. I spent the next like 3 weeks doing poses and just thinking specifically, I want to make the eyes round with Aya. And so like, it seems like obsessive and like a lot of work, but that's the only way I was able to learn how to pose semi-okay, because I would do it over and over again because I was terrible at posing at first, and I would just do it over and over again until I had enough practice that it kind of came naturally to me. So like now, even when I pose, which honestly is like to my detriment, sometimes I don't think when I'm posing, which is bad. Always think through your animation when you're doing it, but sometimes I go on autopilot. But in a way it's a good thing, because I've just gotten used to thinking through all those things that it just kind of happens automatically. I don't have to think, okay, I need to rotate the nose now. Okay, I need to think about the line of action through the face. Okay, now I need to round out the brows. Okay, is there enough of symmetry? Like, all that stuff's happening in the background to the point where I think about other things while I'm posing and animating, because it's just so now like muscle memory within me. But that took a good 2 years, and even now, like, sometimes I have difficulty with certain characters posing or Briggs posing, but getting that to feel just second nature to you and feeling really natural will, like, will be so rewarding in the long run in your career. So I would highly recommend like practice posing as much as you can, especially when you're first starting out, and even if you've been animating for a long time, because it's basic and it's everything that we do is posing. we pose things. That's literally what we do for a living, and make them move in the poses. So yeah, that's my little rant about just making sure that you have good posing and like are learning how to pose now instead of later, right? I am dumb. Okay, see? This is the nose bridge control. I thought this was the main one because I didn't read. And I don't like how it was moving the top of the bridge. So now I just saw, okay, this is the actual nose control. So let me move that. And actually, I may not like what I get with this, but yep, I don't. Yep, so I'm gonna actually do that. Well, maybe I did. Hold on. So, I mean, like you can see already, I've spent about 20 minutes on one pose almost, but I've been talking as well. Like if I wasn't streaming right now, I would be posing and just like having music on or podcasts and like not listening, just focusing, and I'd get this done a lot quicker. But since I'm talking, it's taking a bit longer. But even then, like sometimes posing takes me a really long time, and I do not like to move on until I'm perfectly happy with what I have. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I like that Y translation. I'm just gonna get rid of this and this. See what happens when I get rid of these. And now fix that with this. So yeah, I think that's about like where I would do other things to plus this and just make her look a little more appealing, but this is a good base I think that I would start out with. So you can kind of see like what I did of like certain things of like rounding out the brows. Like now I'm getting too invested and wanting to really pose this out nice. But yeah, just like rounding out the brows, making sure that the eyes are nice and round. What does this do? You know, rounding out the brows, make sure the eyes are nice and round, moving that nose a bunch, really just bringing all those eyes, the eyelids in, bringing all of the creases in, making the cheeks fuller, scaling the chin in, and width-wise and width and length of the chin, just making it look a lot cuter, a lot more like a doll-like, right? Like rounder eyes, rounder face, turning up the nose even a little bit, like a little bit of exploitation. Okay, hopefully it didn't take too long. Hopefully it was helpful to watch. I always know I really liked watching people like animate and pose because I could just kind of look over their shoulder and understand how they're doing things, because sometimes one of the weird things about animation, and that's half of the reason most of the reason that we started the channel box, is because you learn so much by like shadowing someone, an animator, and just watching how they do things and how they pose. Like I never translated things whenever I was posing, you know, I was always like, you know, rotation, and like I never wanted to move things too much. And then I watched a few other animators pose and, you know, real time, like not sped up. And watching them pose was amazing and changed my life, because I was like, oh my goodness, they just move everything everywhere. Like, man, they're so destructive and demonstrative, and they just like will take the eyes and scale them down or move them in, and it was crazy to me. But seeing that now, like, it helps me so much in my own, because once I started trying it myself, I was able to create a lot cleaner and nicer poses. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, hopefully that helped. Yeah, so you can just kind of see what I did there, and just making it rounder, making it cuter. And then basically, like, a thing too is this is kind of how she comes in at default, right? A little bit different, obviously, but this is how she kind of comes in at default. She's not smiling, and her brows aren't that high, I don't think. But basically what I do when I get a character in, I will take their face, right, and then basically go in and make my version of a default. So I think I actually have it I can show. I did with not the Lindsay rig, but the Milan rig. I went in and I was like, okay, I don't like how Milan looks just default. I hate how her face looks and is posed. Studio library, is it going to load? Hello? Here we go. I have NDA things up right now. Hold on. This one's not mine. Where is it? Hold on 1 second. Okay, like here's some. I don't have the neutral. Oh, here it is, yeah. Here's one with... Oh, who? What, Dan? Oh, you want to see it? The pose. There's the pose. I'm looking right now for Milan library. Here we go. Okay, so Milan, if you can see, why is it so tiny? I don't know why I can't change the tile sizes, but, and this one's kind of intense, but see this neutral pose? So like this is not Milan's normal neutral pose. This is actually one that I fixed, and like I made her eye. It looks crazy, but it's just a little bit better for like what I like of fourth from the top. Fourth where? Oh, this size. Wow, look at that. Dan knowing things. Huh, it's a miracle. But basically like making her eyes bigger, stuff like that. I'll go through, I'll do different poses so that way I can use them as a base whenever I get into a scene. I'm like, because I'm about to start a shot with Milan, a personal shot, so I'm like, okay, I want stretched, you know, poses, squashed. So these are ones that I went in, I go into a scene and I just do these, so that way when I get into my shot, I can just drop them in, and then I can make my specific poses on top of that of stuff that I really want to make, you know, specific to my shot. But I like to have a good base, and also when I have a good base like this, I always know what controls are being used. That's important once you start getting into production work, because if you're working on a show or something that you need to make sure that for an efficient workflow that you're using the same controls each time to get the same results, and not using different controls to get the same exact pose, because that can be a hectic once you start really getting into workflow and things. So with all these poses that I've made, I know exactly what controls I use to make them. So that's also important to keep in mind when you're working with a rig for an extended period of time. Know what controls work best and use them. I think actually Dan did these poses. Yeah, Dan did some of these. I think I did these squashed ones. It says him, but he sent them to me. So yeah, so like these squash pose, like having these, to be able to have these just like as a base to drop into your scene helps a lot. And then I always have like a fixed neutral pose where, you know, I've modded things about the character to look nicer. Like I know I learned this from Amanda Zima, a Disney animator, because she showed us in class once. She took the Douglas rig, and she like made his nose smaller, made his eyes bigger, rotated his eyes, rotated the way his ears sat, changed a few things about like his mouth. And then she was like, okay, ready to start. And she was like, that was her default rig. So that way she always changed things. And he still looked like the same character, but just cuter and more appeal to it. So that's something that I've taken to doing now with rigs that I use a lot. I'll go through, like I made Milan's eyes bigger. I think I like widened her nose a little bit. brought this out kind of like I did in the Lindsay rig with the jaw, stuff like that, just to help start you off with a good base with rigs, and then so that way you can focus more on the storytelling instead of just trying to get a base appeal out of a rig. But yeah, that's kind of basically a long way of saying I would do that for this shot. And then basically she's kind of in this same face for the entire shot, right? So same principles would apply of, rounder eyes, bringing those cheeks out, scaling that chin down, rounding out the eyebrows, making the creases bigger of the eyes. All of that, I would keep that for the entire shot, right? So yeah, that's just kind of my philosophy of like how I work and how I pose. So hopefully that helps. Eob, do you have any other questions or anything specifically about the Lindsay rig or specifically about your shot? Hopefully you can kind of see like how I posed her eyes, and you can kind of see like how to apply that to your shot and to be able to do it yourself. Just seeing like really, I think one of the biggest things is taking these outer controls and moving them in a lot, right? Because I mean, like, look how far, this is default, like where you had them here. Look how much farther I moved them in to like technically shorten the eye, right? They're not this long eye. Shortening it in helps a lot just to make them look really round and appealing and cute. We want her to look cute. So taking those, I think, are a big part of it. And then also taking these main eyelid controls and moving them in X towards the center of the face. So one of my biggest things I would say for posing appeal is move things towards the center of the face. That's the best way we can describe it. Like, just kind of make everything more compact, and with the eyes, I mean, specifically, and sometimes brows too. But just moving it in will just make it look a lot cuter and a lot more appealing. So yeah, hopefully that helps, Ian. Yeah, you're welcome. Awesome, yeah. Yeah, it's looking good. I just think once you start like getting some more appeal into those facial expressions, I feel like your movement's feeling really nice. So once you start getting more appeal into your facial expressions and stuff like that, it will help a lot. And I think you'll be pretty solid with the shot. So yeah, you're welcome. Cool. Okay. Well, I think if that's it, I think that will be it for me today. I've been standing for 2 hours. It feels great. I love this desk. If anyone wants my official review now, animating and drawing. My lower back hurts a little bit, but also I've been putting together desk and moving furniture for the entire day today, and it's 6:30 p.m. my time, so that's probably why my lower back's hurting. But yeah, standing desk is 10 out of 10. I like it a lot. But yeah, I think that's it. So unless there's anyone else or anything, I think I'm going to head out and go get some dinner. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to DM me if you need to, if you have want any clarification about anything. I don't think we have any streams tomorrow. I'm going to say that and then look and then see that we probably have one. Yes, we do, apparently. Okay, surprise. We have a stream tomorrow, but I'm not sure who it is. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. I think it's supposed to be like a chill week this week, but I think it's just maybe a demo, or maybe like Sin doing a demo or just talking. But yeah, follow the Channel Box Discord and the Instagram to know more, and follow us for all our stream stuff. But yeah, with that, I am going to call the day. So goodbye, everyone. Have a good day, and I will see you next time. Bye.